I came proclaiming to you Christ and Him crucified. My dear sisters and brothers, the Christians and Catholics that we are, we look to the cross all the time. And in fact, we begin our day with the sign of the cross and end the day with the same. Any work or play, any new venture, or even meal for that matter, always begins with the sign of the cross and ends with the same. Now, this sign of the cross is so very important and basic to us that we carry it around with us in picture postcards or ID cards or at the end of our necklace, or some of us also have it made on our rings. The cross is fundamental to our faith. And yet, do we pause and ask ourselves what purpose it serves, what meaning it conveys, and how it wants to change and transform our life? I come from India, and you are aware of that. And India is a multi-religious setting. I remember this time when this election campaign was on, one of the speakers from a political party, and by the way, he was an atheist, he looked at this multi-religious gathering and said, "I am a Hindu without the sectarian mark on my forehead, a Muslim without the cap on my head, and I am a Christian without the cross of Christ." And listening to him, I said to myself, is it possible to be a good Hindu without the sectarian mark on my forehead? Well, it is mandatory. Or is it possible to be a good, devout, religious Muslim without covering your head? But this one thing I know, that one can never, ever be a Christian without the cross of Christ, if not in his hand or around his neck, at least in his heart. What does a cross up there serve? Or what is the use of wearing a cross around your necklace if you don't get the meaning of it? For me, that image of Christ crucified and being on the cross, and Francis of Assisi standing at the foot of the cross and taking the crucified Lord into himself, that is the purpose and that is the meaning of the cross. A cross not up there or here around my finger, but the cross of Christ in my mind and in my heart. As you look around, there is a lot of violence in each of us, in our relationships, even in our own families, in our neighborhood, in the nation and the world at large. God saw this, and that is why He noticed how we deal with this violence. We deal with what we call bad or evil. What do? We reject those people, making them all scapegoats, and then we, if needed, sacrifice them. And so notice what God does. To break the cycle of violence, He who is an innocent victim, a spotless victim, chooses to become the rejected victim and the sacrificial lamb. And He puts Himself and makes himself be made a scapegoat, and there he is on the cross. Not striking back, not returning violence for evil, but allowing that violence to stop within himself. And thereby, he, in his own way, breaks that cycle of violence. To conclude, the cross is what I would call a homeopathic symbol. I'm sorry to say this too often, but back where I come from, India, there is a form of treatment we call homeopathy. It's based on this principle: like cures like. It can be explained as that which causes the symptoms of illness in a healthy person is also that which heals and cures the symptoms of sickness in a person who is ill. This is what we call a vaccine, and that's what it does, giving the patient just the right amount of sickness so that the body gets used to it and fights back and resists and pushes back the virus. That's how I look at the cross, a homeopathic sign. God allowing the violence to overwhelm him, well, not exactly, and he takes it on to himself and lets it stop with him, so that looking at that cross made so very public, you and I will not engage in any more violence. That is how I understand the cross. Let us, as we go through this Eucharist, pray that, like Jesus, who is an innocent victim, a spotless victim, who makes himself the rejected victim and the sacrificial lamb, may avoid violence, may fight the evil, the bad in the world through non-violent forms, which is represented so well by the cross of Christ. That which hurts also heals. That which kills also cures. May the cross of Christ teach us the mind and the heart of God, so that you and I may go about healing wounds and warming hearts like God does all the time.